Hey guys, welcome back to the Wavefront podcast. Today we have a very special guest in Ayaan Esmail.
Ayaan is a 16-year-old researcher conducting experiments in exponential technologies. He's super passionate about personalized medication, nanotechnology, and oncology, and he's worked on many ventures and projects in those fields. He's also had a wide variety of experiences speaking at top conferences like TEDx, Takeover Dubai, Elevate, and BioHack Summit. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ayaan, so I know you're like really into reading books, listening to podcasts. So is there like a specific podcast that you've been listening to recently that you really enjoyed? It could be an
Yeah,
episode or it could be a specific like podcast in itself.
it was the Joe Rogan one, the most recent one with Elon Musk. And then I went back and I watched the one, like the very first one with Elon Musk, and watched like the second one. And like just the difference in like the two of them was really interesting. Because like in the first one, like he was like a lot more like loosened up, like they were drinking, etc. So he just like said a lot more things, and all of them made sense. And then you could see how he matured over to like the second one, where it was like he knew what he was saying. He like could explain more about Neuralink, like he just gave more information in the second one than he did in the first one. So personally, I'd say like the podcast that I actually just listened to yesterday was like the Joe Rogan one with Elon Musk. I liked it a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I think I listened to that one as well. He's really interesting. It's like
Yeah.
it's a very interesting dynamic, I think, between like Joe Rogan and Elon. Because Elon's like, no offense to Joe Rogan, but he's kind of on like another level. But then Joe Rogan's like so good at just doing a podcast that he's able to like communicate with Elon Musk and kind of dumb it down to the regular public, which is like really good.
yeah. It's insane to like Joe Rogan is so good at like he's talking to like neuroscientists and at the same time the guy talks to Post Malone. Like it's so funny. Like the guy he's so good at conversations and just like talking to different types of people. So I guess that's why he's number one.
He's just like really good at it. Like that, I guess that's the reason why like Spotify is paying him so much money and he gets so many views. Like I remember him talking to the guy who does that meditation app, like the Waking Up app. And he was saying like the exact same thing. Like you just have to be really good at getting people to say like the right things and just drive the momentum and energy of a conversation. Because I guess that's his job. So over time, he just gets really really good at it. He's also a comedian and he reports for the UFC. So communications is like kind of his thing now.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey guys, this is Drew butting in here. As an entrepreneurial high school student, I've started many projects and startups, but have found problems in finding co-founders and ideas. That's why Sloan, Adam, and I created a platform for high school students to post project ideas they have or projects they're working on, as well as who they're looking for specifically. At the same time, those wanting to work on early stage projects can message the creators of the post on the platform and can hopefully work with them. So if this sounds like something you would be interested in, you can check it out at wavefront.com, spelled without an O. The link will also be in the description. And now we'll get back to the podcast. You've worked on like lots of projects. I mean, like I've seen like you've worked on like a newsreader, you've worked on Lollipop, which I think was like a messaging platform for like dog owners.
That was Doggo, but yeah, I worked on something called Lollipop too.
Yeah, and then the pregnancy subscription box,
Yeah.
etc. So like, what's your thought process in trying to find new projects and opportunities? Yeah, so how do you approach that?
Yeah. So I guess when Sloan talked about the personalized medicine stuff, that was like up until the age of 15, where it was like, let me learn about exponential technologies, see what like this entire world is about. Like, is it really possible to implement these technologies? Then once I like realized it's possible, then I was like, okay, like I wanted to try doing something. And that's when I started something called Genis. I think Drew, you heard of it when I was in the program, and essentially it was like we were trying to sequence DNA using nanopores more effectively. And one thing I realized while trying to do that was I was trying to like, so I didn't really know what it takes to execute on like a small idea or even start a company in the first place. Like even if you look at people like Elon Musk, like they've started other companies in the past before starting like moonshot companies, so that they can learn and that they can understand what it takes to actually execute on an idea. So that's kind of like the thought process behind what I wanted to do. It started off in like last year, October, September time, where I had this idea. Like the main goal of this was all just to execute an idea, see what it's like to get users, kind of like what you guys are doing with Wavefront right now. And I guess like the process just kept on evolutionizing from idea to idea because I just kept on like failing. Because obviously like the first time I had this idea for an app called Party, where you could basically just see like everybody parties. Like it was like I don't know what I was thinking. It was like interesting. I didn't know how to like do any of the coding. So like here I was like a solo founder, and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And then I didn't even go out and talk to users. I didn't like even know who my ideal user was. So then I guess that evolved to more like doggo, which was like I was a dog owner in the past. I wanted to understand my dog, but then I guess like the evolution I got from doggo that I had to move on with was that like my personal ethics and morals just didn't move with like the general field of dog training. Like I walked into a dog training class and I saw dogs being pulled on leashes, and like you could tell that they just didn't want to be there. That was really interesting. So that's when I learned, okay, like let's take the combination of like something I'm passionate about and something that like users actually want. And then that's when Lollipop started, which was when like a lot of people procrastinate a lot, and I felt the same thing too, like with social media, etc. And like a lot of my friends felt this as well, and I just wanted to help them. I felt really bad for them. Like they wanted to do good things in life, like they wanted to work on projects, but just like the algorithm of these companies are just like so good that they like just put you into like a tunnel whirlpool, and you just like literally just go on TikTok for 4 hours or like Instagram. And so the whole point of Lollipop was we said like 15 minutes, and if you go over that 15-minute screen time limit, then then like you it'll message a friend, or it'll take some money out of your account, etc. Just sort of like way to hold you accountable.
Okay.
But the problem with that was I realized it has to also be technologically feasible. So then we moved on to Billy Pal, and there everything like was working fine. We got users, but the problem there was that it wasn't operationally feasible. So technologically, everything worked. Like I could build a box, etc. The long term, if we wanted to scale, because like we actually started getting a buzz. We got like 20 users without actually having done like or any paid marketing. We literally just posted it in pregnancy group chats. We went like direct to the pregnant moms, and they all started like users. What we realized like long term, this wouldn't work because we didn't take the cost of the offer, taking like the operating cost of something. Because that's really interesting. Imagine like I have to pay somebody to run this box. It's like hold it, but it didn't pack it nicely. Am I getting paid enough to run that operation in the future? No, I wasn't. So then that's why we have to move on from Lily-Pal, and now we're working on this thing called Thermopal, which is basically like it's very very like direct. So if you like, I'll show you the website later on, but essentially companies like directly are losing money because of the temperature checks. So senior homes have to spend 2 times a day doing temperature checks, and they have like all this PPE equipment. They spend all this time, and then same as daycare centers, they just started opening, and they also have to do 2 mandatory temperature checks, and most of them even do like 3. So the whole goal here is how do I just put a bracelet on your wrist, and it just measures your temperature throughout the day. And even if you go on our website, like you'll see, like, I literally have like broken down the like cost, then so it's like very direct is how like we're giving the value to the product, and then on top of that, the technology is also like feasible. Like there's also like a temperature wristband that I was like able to get. I'm looking at like understanding how the hardware works, etc. But it's all feasible. So I
Yeah.
just mixed all my learning. Now this is what I got to, I guess.
Well, what I'm like kind of getting for that too, I feel like that's like so much easier to expand extremely quickly, because instead of marketing directly to consumers where you need to attract each individual consumer and make them stay, you're just going from business to business. And so if you get one senior home, that's like 200 people right there. And if you get another one, that you just doubled to 400 people. Like I think you can
Yeah,
expand so much more quickly that way.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got the point.
Yeah.
And how are you building the technology for the wristband?
Yeah. So these types of wristbands have actually already been used in China. So because their schools are opening, you basically just look at the same wristbands that they use, and then you can use those here, and they work like very effectively. And science even shows that like the your wrist temperature can actually be more effective than your forehead temperature. So we just use the ones that the Chinese use, etc. And it has the same amount of effectiveness if we were to take a temperature gun. I'm
Uh,
getting samples on like the 10th. So once I get them, I'll like take pictures and show you.
yeah.
Okay.
So have you started like doing outreach and all that for it yet, or are you waiting for inventory to come in?
Yeah, so we started doing outreach, obviously talk to users. We know that people are excited about it, but you know, there's always a difference between I'm excited about it and I'll pay for it.
Mhm.
So now that we've like had it, we've created a deck, we found like the right manufacturer, etc. Now we're starting to do like outreach where it's like, hey, we heard you were excited. Now, like, do you want to pay for it? So that's what we and Nanya are up to. And yeah, essentially they're just reaching out to more and more senior homes to see if the ones we reached out to before are just willing to pay.
Mm. So do you know how much it's like going to cost for all of that, and do you know how
Yeah.
much of a cost for everything?
It'll cost $50 per bracelet for
Yeah.
the wristband, obviously, and then there is like an insurance fee that you pay. So
Okay.
it's all dependent on the home. Like obviously, bigger home is gonna pay like less money because you have more people, so you're buying more
Yeah.
bracelets up front, so you don't have to pay like as much insurance. It's all dependent on the home. Like the whole goal here is just to save like the home money. So I wouldn't like charge you like $5 per insurance if I knew I was losing you money. I would charge like $2.5 because like in the long term you're spending more up front, and like the vaccine will come in 18 minus like whatever 5 months that I've already passed.
It's also interesting. I think care homes are probably the best way of doing this, because if it was like direct to consumer and you had the option of buying one, then if only half the population had them, it would kind of be useless, because then the other half you wouldn't know if they had it or not. So having
Yeah,
like this small like contained sample size, I think is like really smart.
yeah. We thought about like should we make this B2B or B2C? Like really with B2C, like even me as a consumer, I wouldn't like buy something like this for
Mm.
$50. Like it just doesn't seem like something that I would need. But in like the case of a B2B, it's like directly decreasing their cost. So it's like, why wouldn't you buy this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also easier to get like B2B, it's easier to get money from them as well than a B2C, to spend money, and especially in the masses, it's easier to grow. So I think that's pretty smart
And especially when
approach.
like care homes are like such a vulnerable place right now, like they're the ones who are most
Yeah.
affected, and I think it's something that they could really use. But I've also heard that like temperature checks, there's been some like confusion on whether they're like a really valid way of checking if you have COVID or if it's
Yeah.
like less certain. Have you done any research into that?
Yeah, really, it's we know that like not everybody thinks it's like the most effective way to check for COVID. Obviously, you can
Mm.
take a COVID test, but there are companies that are already doing that, and we were just looking to save like these senior homes money right now, rather than like especially trying to stop something that like we can't have a lot of control over. Personally, I can't go out there and create like a better COVID testing kit, etc. But from the resources like I have and the projects I've done in the past, like this is the best way that I could help and like just helping you save some costs. It's really not even up to the senior home at the end of the day. It's just up to the government. And the government makes them do this. The government makes the daycare centers do this. So we're just trying to like
Mm.
reduce the cost for that.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, and have you ever reached like, because you've worked on like lots of projects, have you ever reached a point where you wanted to like grow your team, or have you usually been like solo or stuck with your co-founders?
No, whenever we need to like ask somebody for help in TKS, we always ask. Yeah, we're constantly just like I don't need to bring someone on. Like, I think you bring someone on for a specific use case, and right now we're like in the right spot where it's like we have the right amount of people, we're working on like the right thing, and we all have like kind of defined roles as like founders and like what we're doing. So far we're good, but like we haven't looked to expand our team, like not soon, because
Yeah,
we haven't really gotten users yet or like blitz scaled yet. So maybe once that starts, like that's something to look into, but obviously like not right now.
yeah. And and so as you mentioned Genesis, and I think that was your like biggest project before this one.
Yeah,
And it was basically you were trying to make genetic genome sequencing like cheaper, right, and more efficient.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for like most of our viewers, I think might not have as much like background as you do. So can you like maybe explain like what you were doing and how you were able to get a new method to
Yeah.
sequencing?
So essentially, the way that the type of sequencing we were doing was occurred was you have like a sheet of a nanopore. So in our case, it's silicon nitride, and it's really like conductive. So if I ran electricity through it and I put a hole in the middle, it would generate like a little charge. You could see something. So
Hmm.
if I put like a strip of DNA through, and like that nucleotide, like the A, hit the middle of where that electrical charge is, it would send off a current because the DNA is interacting with the T's and G's, you'd be able to what's end up coming out from that electrical little thing here in the middle of the circle. And then based on that, you'll really easily be able to tell if it's like A, C, T, or G. And it does it really fast because all you gotta do is take all these strips and pass them through. It's really cheap because now instead of having to pay for this like huge machine where you have to use like other peptides, other polymers, now the only thing you're using is just like a sheet of a nanopore, an electrical current, and a little sensor. That's it.
And and what's the benefit of being able to sequence genomes cheaper? What can you like do with that? Like, is it?
Yeah,
Mhm. Keep
the
going.
like the technology genome sequencing, you essentially have your genetics. I could see what medications are right for you. I could see specific diseases you could have in the future. Those are like the two main use cases that a lot of us talk about. You could also use it to see what nutrition or diet plan is good for you. There's tons of different use cases for genetics, but a lot of them are like really centered around like how do I make sure that I know if you'll have a disease in the future or prescribe you with the right medication. And if I can do this cheaper, I can give it to more people because right now it obviously like it costs a little bit more. Obviously, they've implemented the technologies that we talked about, and I've used like similar methods because obviously when we did this at the time it was like 2018, 2017. So like they've definitely started to implement those, so things are becoming cheaper. But it's still like in a really big box and really expensive. So if I made it cheaper, then more people would be able to access it and gain like the benefits of this technology. Because right now only us, or even not like I don't even have access to technology, but some of us in the Western world have access to it. But others in like India, others in like Africa, like they're probably not going to gain access to these technologies until like years and years down the line. So the whole goal there was like if I could broad scale the access to such an amazing technology, that'd be really great.
In comparison to like what we currently have, how much cheaper would it be in terms of cost?
So we calculated it. I believe it was around like 2 times cheaper than what was currently there. So like you just cut down the
Wow.
cost in half.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I'll
like
send you
manufacturing and
the
all that.
deck if we. Yeah. Sorry,
And in
it
like
glitched.
yeah, no problem. In like manufacturing and all that, have you worked out like is it like possible to like grow it? I know you guys
Yeah,
moved on, but
that's one of the reasons why we actually stopped working on it. So from our perspective as students, it's really hard to go in a lab, manufacture these, and like we hadn't had any experience with like actually fabricating nanosensors, putting the sensor on, like actually taking like a nitride nanopore. Like that's like really like the human eye can barely even see it. We had not a lot of experience with that, which is one of the reasons why we stopped. So for the manufacturing aspect, it's possible, but it is very hard to do.
yeah, I mean it definitely seems like a really interesting concept though. If it like if anybody does in the future, I think it could be revolutionary.
Hello?
Oh, okay,
Hey,
yeah, you're back.
I think you were frozen for a while. Yeah. What were you saying? So, you want to
Oh,
repeat your
yeah,
question?
yeah.
No, I was
Sorry
just
about that.
saying that I think it could be like if someone were to do that in the future, it could be really revolutionary in terms of like, you know, genome sequencing.
Yeah.
But you like clearly have reached out to a lot of people for like that project and for the project you're working on now. What's kind of your approach to like reaching out, meeting new people, getting in contact with like care homes or getting in contact with labs? Like how do you do that?
Um, Really, we just research who the person is.
Mhm.
So if somebody runs like a nanotech lab, we'll see who they are, and we'll think about like reaching out to more than just that person. Like if you reach out to that person's coworker, their coworker's coworker, then like all these people are attached in the same email, so they know like one of them has to respond. And then the way we go around reaching out is we usually try to say something super specific to that person. So that person releases a specific paper where they talk about something, and we wanted to talk about like that concept of gene sequencing and how they did it, then we would mention that. But yeah, we send them emails and sometimes we'll call them, etc. But I think the main thing that's helped me the most when reaching out to these people is really getting in their shoes or letting people, why would this person want to meet with me? Because like really at the end of the day, I don't have any like sort of certifications or like I don't have anything really. I'm just a student. So it's like what do I have to do to show like some sort of validation that this person has met me? Like maybe I wrote an article on gene sequencing and I attached that. So he's like,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
this kid doesn't know like nothing. He knows like something. So he like at least the guy knows that I'm not like a nobody. I know like some parts and I'm not just like a random student reaching out. Really understanding his perspective or like their perspective has helped me specifically get more meetings.
Yeah. And I mean, for the past like many years, you've been like super like interested in like personalized medicine and kind of like
Yeah.
helping increase or make better the current system for healthcare. So, why is personalized medicine so important, do you think?
Yeah. The reason why personalized medicine is so important is because, or the main reason why I thought it was important is because it's really hard in a patient scenario to be giving them lots of medications that don't work. I think about how frustrated you'd be if you had to get like lots and lots of medications until you got like one medication that worked. I was like, oh shit, like now the fifth one works. But like I'm already so much sicker, so like what's the point? Like
Yeah.
it's just a really frustrating experience. It's more of a privilege problem than like a needs problem. Like it's a problem we face here. Whereas like in Africa, if they give you any medication and it works just a little bit, they'll be like so happy because like over there it's like obviously scarce, etc. But
Mhm. I didn't know
here,
that people like get the wrong medications like
yeah,
very frequently.
yeah, I got inspired because my mom got the wrong medication. So
Okay.
she had pneumonia. They gave her like three different medications. Fourth one worked, and then I was like, oh, like why can't you just give her the right medication the first time? And when I researched, you gotta like know the person's genetics, and this technology's actually been around for a really long time. And the reason why I got really interested in it was because I wondered like why hasn't this been implemented today? Like it's been around since like the 19 like I believe it was like 1970s, 1980s. Like, people were
Wow.
using this term. It's been here for so long, but the reason why is because of the genetic sequencing, like we talked about. Like it's not super efficient. It costs like I can't put it in a clinic because like a really high like piece of technology that costs like a high cost technology. I can't just let
Mm.
everybody use it. Like, that's not how it works. So like just really trying to understand why this technology had been implemented and understanding it because my mom had like that problem. It was just like the reason why I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a healthcare guy. I'm more just in space and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
your genes don't change, right? So if you get your gene sequenced once, like you only need it once for any healthcare medication going forward, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So then if like everybody got it at least once, then in theory we wouldn't have to deal with that problem ever again.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to deal with the problem, but like I think one of the reasons why personalized medicine is still evolving is because like it's not only genetic. Because like you talked about, like my genes are only once,
Mhm.
but like my metabolites are currently changing. Like the system, the drug is going to use to break things down in my body and affect like the actual symptoms I have, like that obviously changes as your body changes. So it's really a combination of like lots of things when you're looking at personalized medicine. Main thing obviously being genetics because it doesn't really change like the one fundamental basis. But if we did have everybody in the world who got a genetic sequence given personalized medications, would be a lot easier for sure.
Yeah.
And how do people, like, let's say you get your gene sequence, like how do you create personalized medicine based on those genetics? Like what are the current methods to do that?
Um, so you can look at a company called Pill Check, like literally just the words Pill Check. The way that they do it is you sequence your genome and they look for like very specific like sequences of A's, T's, C's, and G's. And in that specific sequence of A's, C's, T's, and G's, that'll form like a specific gene. And if you have this gene, then this means that this medication will work best on you compared to this medication because that gene will interact differently with the way the medication is going within your body. So the main way that they do it is just looking at that sequence and that genome. And once I analyze all the genomes, I can be able to tell which medication will work best.
Okay. That's really interesting. It seems like you clearly know a lot about that and you're very passionate about it. Could you ever see yourself working in like something similar or working on a similar project in the future?
Yeah, of course. Like I've always loved to work in healthcare because it's a problem that I find I'm really passionate about. Um, like the healthcare space has always been something I've always been interested in, and I definitely do want to go back to it as something like I work on within the future. So yeah, I could see myself working on a project like that in the future. I just don't want to like move too far ahead and fail. I'd rather like
Yeah.
start off by like at least executing on an idea successfully and like making my way up.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, so much of like I think projects just like when you're our age and even like when you're older is like you get a good idea, you try to execute on it. It either fails or it works, and then you reiterate, you do another idea, and then you check that
yeah,
again, and you just keep doing it, and one of them's going to be successful. But I
yeah,
think you don't want to rush the process. Like enjoy the process, enjoy like trying to execute an idea, and then go back if it doesn't work out, realize that, and try again.
Yeah. A little different question I had was about
yeah,
your pregnancy. Yeah, actually, you go. Actually, yeah, about your pregnancy subscription box that you were talking about.
yeah.
Um, and how did you find the channels to reach out to pregnant women? Like, was it like Facebook groups or was it like how did you actually like get in contact with them?
Facebook groups. Yeah, you said Facebook groups. Like bang on. We used there's this platform called Baby Center. We use them as well. Basically, just looked at Reddit. And also, we knew if you're pregnant moms, so those pregnant moms reach out to their pregnant people there. And if one pregnant mom there like this, you share her. So it was just like an effect of just like getting it to like actual pregnant moms that we knew, and then these groups and these chats, because like that's where like all the communities are when people are always talking. And I could just comment on somebody's post. Somebody was like, "Oh, I really wanted like this box, and like it didn't come, and like I hated it." So we would talk to just use like Lollipop. They're so much better. This is what they do, etc. And they'll look into it, they'll click it, and then we'll see what happens. So the way we went direct to consumer was groups, and then like actual pregnant moms, because we had to validate the idea. And when we validated the idea, we talked to actual pregnant moms, and so that's where that came in handy.
Well, that's really good. I think I know a lot of people talk about executing on like going into Facebook groups and stuff, but I think that's like such a valuable skill to have like such a wide amount of your target audience and being able to like directly communicate them and get direct feedback. I think is like super valuable in anything
Yeah,
you're doing.
yeah, it helps a lot to be like directly tied to your consumer, but like it works a lot better if you are the consumer, obviously, in a B2C, because like in a B2B, it's like it always helps to be the ideal consumer, or at least be working in the field that the
Mhm.
consumer is in, but you can't always be in that field, so you just got to go with it.
Yeah, so like for your temperature monitoring thing, have you talked to any seniors or anything like that? Have you got any feedback in that way?
Yeah, so we've talked to a lot of senior homes, and from what they've said, they essentially want to just hear more about how the bracelet works, um, how the dashboard works, because right, we're gonna have a dashboard that monitors all these bracelets. So a lot of them are excited. We haven't got a lot of feedback on the idea because we actually just finalized the product,
Mhm.
and just like are getting the samples soon. So we're releasing our DAC website, etc. So now we're gonna start getting feedback on the product, but we did garner like some sort of initial interest. So at least that's something. It's obviously like it's it's not really anything in like the long term of things until somebody actually pays, because like everybody's always interested. They're like, I put my email into a bunch of
Yeah,
different platforms. Do I pay
yeah,
for any of them? Like no, I only pay for like two of them. But like
yeah.
we'll just have to go with what happens and just see. But right now, people are just excited. That's like the only thing we see.
That's good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And how do you like try to get like product market fit and iterate on your idea? Like I know because sometimes people say just like keep getting feedback, but then I've also heard like people are like the customer doesn't always know what they want. So like how do you kind of like find a balance and try to find like a product or make it so that it is fits the best need case for the ideal
Yeah,
consumer?
yeah. So in this case, the ideal consumer is the business, and the like product market fit for us is just like the market right now is at a space where they are bleeding money. Like in our case, it's very direct. Like just like, oh, you're spending like a lot of money and you're spending a lot of time, and that time translates into money. And this is how much you're bleeding. If you use our product until a vaccine comes, assuming that it takes 18 months, this is how much you'll make. And it's like very simple.
Mhm.
Literally, if I just showed you like a table that said you were losing money, and if you use my solution, you weren't gonna lose money, and it included the cost of my solution in it. Like it's very direct. Like it's just like a very simple like yes or like no. And like if I'm making you money, then it's like decreasing your cost. And it's like yes, why not?
Yeah. Well, for sure, that makes sense. I know, like me and Drew, in terms of like, we went through a beta round for Wavefront, and we've got lots of feedback from like
Yeah,
everybody in every different place, and we get lots of like critical feedback, which is good. But it's important to know like what's critical feedback that can help us and like actually succeed, and then what's critical feedback that's like not really going with our main message. And it's something that we're like learning as we're going. But I think it's like a really important thing for anybody who's trying to start a project to like consumers are good and they can help you in a lot of different ways, but be aware of like what you're trying to do and make sure you stay on your message.
I think it's also about developing like a specific type of target user, because what I've seen is like there's been contradictory feedback, right? Like somebody says one thing while the other person says the opposite, but they could have like a different like mindset, or they might be a different type of person. So if you could actually like narrow down on who your ideal customer is to like be a bit more specific with it, you can like see whose advice maybe to listen to more than others and who to kind of
yeah,
develop it for more than others. And I think that's like very big, because like a lot of times like even with us, like I've worked on a couple of things before, and it's like very easy to just like be like, oh yeah, this is like just have an assumption that everyone's gonna love it and that you're gonna like it. But like if you don't talk to users, it's kind of like you're setting yourself up for failure, because if you like spend like months and months working on something and then you find out that maybe people don't want to use it and you haven't validated it, it's kind of like you might not fail, but it might take much longer to start iterating on your solution and getting it out to users. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. Yeah, that's the reason why before we're even getting the samples, we just want to talk to people because it's now like, okay, like, are people really interested? Are they really gonna pay? It's like working on the consumer thing and now working on a B2B things seem to be a lot different, but like so far, I can't go in and talk to mass amounts of users or like I can, but it's like a very different feel or vibe.
Yeah.
With a consumer product, but like with a business, it's hard to do that. Maybe you could do a referral program for businesses, but like it's just like a different vibe. But yeah, I do agree with everything you're saying. Like just talk to more users.
Yeah, I agree. Also, like, clearly you're a very busy guy. You're doing the podcast, you're working on a project, like, even during the summer, you're a busy guy. How have you been able to, like, manage your time? And are there any strategies or tips you can recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. So my time isn't like managed. I guess I just have to work until I get a goal done, and then I sleep, and then I have like I just there's like I used to have a schedule where it's like I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I sleep here, and then I was like, okay, but like now like it's a completely different lifestyle. It's like you have to get this like website done so then they can start doing sales tomorrow, and you have to talk to the Alibaba guy, and the Alibaba guy's in China time, and like our manufacturers are there, so then you have to like completely change around your schedule. Like it's it's just like I don't know. I don't like have a schedule per se. The only thing like or like the way that I've started working now is just like I have a goal. I work until I finish that goal, and I just continue working until I finish all my goals. Once I finish all my goals for the day, then it's like okay, I can sleep until like depending on how many goals I have the next day. I either sleep like 8 hours or I either sleep like 5 hours. It's like okay.
Yeah, I think it kind of happened to me similarly too. So the first half of quarantine, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sleep at 9:30, 10, wake up at 5 o'clock. Did that for like a solid 3, 4 weeks, and then I'm like, everyone in our age group, especially like if you're working as like a co-founder with them, are up like at late at night and wake up later. So then the second half of quarantine, I'm like, oh, I'm up at 5:30 a.m. and I'm sleeping at 6. So it's like a total like reversal because it's just like it's so hard to keep like a schedule when you have to like work with other people's deadlines and you have to work on like nothing's constant as much, when you're working even like in any project or something. I would say it's like you have to kind of like manage and adjust, and it's kind of tough to set that, but I think you can still create like a schedule where you have like some times that can be managed, but like with sleep schedules it's tough to do.
I also think that, like, right now, where we are in our lives, like, relatively young, our time isn't that valuable, but that whoever we're working with has probably much more valuable time. And so if we're able to work around that and just, like, do the goals that we got to do, however we got to do them, I think that's, like, a way more productive way than necessarily just, like, oh, I can only talk between 2 and 3 p.m. because, like, that person might have work. Like, you don't know how it's going to go. It's better to just seize opportunities when they arise than trying to plan for the perfect one.
Yeah, literally when we were just calling people, we would give them any time, and we always have to work around everybody else's schedule. But like the consumer always has to come first, and we're just trying to benefit them. So at the end of the day, whenever they can be, like we'll just make sure we I don't know have enough caffeine in our bodies to operate. Like doesn't matter, we just have to be there. I guess that's just like the way things go when you're working on like a project. You just have to do what you have to do. It's like they like you were saying, it's not a very specific schedule. But I think like trying to operate around a work schedule, especially in our case, because we're doing B2B. So whenever we call these people, whenever I have to like get data or even like talk to any of these senior homes, I always have to make sure I'm like in there. I'm not gonna ask them to like talk at 7:30 p.m. I'm gonna ask them to talk at like 4:30 p.m. So like we're always conscious of that, obviously, but like personally, I wouldn't say it's like I don't think starting a company is like gonna give you the most healthy schedule you want. Like I don't think that's the purpose of it. You have to, at the start, especially, just work a lot harder, I guess, because you are just trying to start something that nobody has done before. So it is going to intuitively be harder than like working on like a job that somebody else has already had. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely more stressful than working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you have to hop off soon. We just have a couple more
Yeah.
questions. Just so the first one, I'm just curious, is like I've seen like you're going speaking in like San Francisco. You go to like Dubai and all that,
Yeah.
and it's usually during the school year. So how does that work? Like, do you like take your schoolwork there, and how does your school kind of work around that schedule?
So with my school, they're really supportive of the work that I do. Um, it's not always the teachers, but the guidance counselors really do help me. Like there is one guidance counselor that really does help and explains to the teachers like, hey, like look, this kid is doing all this stuff, etc. Because when I try to explain to them, it just doesn't work. They just don't listen to me. Sometimes they don't even believe me. They're like, yeah, ha ha ha, you're going to San Francisco, and then I leave, and then they're like, what? I was like, I told you, and you just didn't listen. But the way I try to manage my schoolwork is I have like friends in these classes who are also part of TCAS. Essentially, a lot of kids in my school are in TCAS, so I talked to a lot of them about TCAS. So a lot of them ended up joining, and a lot of them ended up liking the program. So they're able to help me out, and I'm able to help them out. But essentially, I've developed really good relationships with the peers around me. And by developing a relationship with the peers around me, I obviously won't be able to develop a relationship with every teacher. But I can develop a relationship with every other kid my age just a lot easier. I can relate to them more, and that's how like I'm able to get a lot of my schoolwork done and like be in the loop. Because I always can't be in class. Obviously, always can't listen to the teacher, but I can always read the notes because not everything the teacher says is always like going to be on the test. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say it's significantly easier for you to now to like learn like all the school material with like the fact that you're like reading like so many complicated research papers and working in the fields, or would you say it's just a totally different system?
Um, it depends. Different for different subjects, right?
Yeah.
I think the main thing is for me, it's just like my heart or like will has to be there. And for school, a lot of times it's not there. Like it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, let's go learn about like math and like slopes and like calculus, etc. And I'm not gonna do that. But I think it's just like the mental strain I have to go through. I don't think it's easier actually for me. I would say it's harder because like I don't like working on all those things. It feels like a job. Like I have to do this. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, it's just what I gotta do, right? Um, so obviously I don't like doing it, and I don't find it easier. Some tactics I've learned from like my other work has obviously helped. Like if I ever need to reach out to somebody, reach out to a teacher, like have a meeting or get information, it's a lot easier. But I would say it's harder because I just don't have like as big of a will. When you have a will, it's very easy to find a way to do things. But when you don't have a will, it's a lot harder to find a way.
Is there anything that you've learned from like conferences or TKS or like the stuff you do outside of school that's transferred to what you do inside of school or how you approach doing assignments and whatnot?
Mhm. Um, yeah, I think it's all the mindsets.
Hmm.
So a lot of the mindsets enforce us to have higher standards, to put in like a lot of, or to have like a day one mentality where it's like you want to overwork and add extra effort just in the case that there's a problem that you like missed out on other parts. Um, all the mindsets that we've learned within TKS, specifically I think the high standard one has helped the most. Really transferred into school because obviously like if I just look at what the best part of this assignment is or what the best version of this assignment is and go and copy that, then I'll just get like the best marks. But I just have to have like higher standards because like a lot of the kids in my class they look at like the 4 plus and they'll be like, oh, that's my standard. But then you want to have like a lot higher standard, which allows you to like reach more, achieve more. In
Hmm.
terms of TCAS specifically, like a lot of the skills can be transferred if you're like smart, like coding could be used to help you with math, etc. Like all these there's like really small things, but I think a lot of those skills are obviously used for different purposes. Like example, me networking will kind of help me with my teacher, but really at the end of the day, my teacher just has a job. Mark me. That's all she has to do. Like I can't really like sleaze my way out of that or like sweet talk her. Like that's not gonna work a lot of the times. I can like with the meeting skills I've gained, I have been able to talk to guidance counselors to like help them understand me which has helped, which let them talk to teachers. But I
Yeah.
think the more of the things within TCAS is less about the skills and more about the mindsets. Because you can always learn a skill. I can always teach you how to code. I can always teach you how to get good at meetings over time. But what I can't teach you is like a mindset. Like a mindset is something that you have to like actually live by. So I think
Yeah.
those mindsets have helped me within TCAS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I was in TKS for a year. But the
Yeah.
thing like I think that I don't know, this was like a small thing that I learned from it that I transferred back to school. But before, like, presentations were kind of like boring. Like, I just do like fine on presentations. I didn't do poorly. I didn't do great. I just did okay. But now, after like doing TKS and like learning how to actually like present on something and like communicate to a public audience, like I don't even have better content. To be honest, I probably have worse content, but I do way better just because of the mindset and how I approach like communicating information.
Yeah. And then the last question I wanted to ask you, I mean, like, I remember meeting you for the first time, a couple years ago when you were starting off in grade 8. You're very different than you were now. Is there anything you would say to grade 8 Ion that was starting out learning about these emerging technologies
How
and going
different
into?
was I?
You were so different. Oh my God. You have changed so much. It's insane. But I would say early. Like, I think you were changing during the year as well. Like, I mean, just like confidence wise. I mean, confidence wise, and just like how you approach things, and like especially because I remember both of us, we gave a presentation on the first day of TKS. You remember when you had to present about it was, I think it was about
Genetics?
a different way of, no, it was food. It was like
Okay.
entomology or whatever. And I remember you talking then, and then I remember seeing your talk at like TEDx Don Mills, and I was like, man, this guy's so different now. Like, he speaks like it's so much more substance and so much more like it's so much more interesting to listen to.
Do you think I've changed as like a person? Do you think my values and like I'm just like this? I'm like the same little guy as I was before, but like it's just like different way of saying things.
Yeah, no, you're definitely like the same type of guy. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Like as Kobe likes to say, it's like the same beast but a different animal.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely like the same. Like you're the same, nice, like funny, all that type of stuff is the same. It's just like the stuff now and the stuff you've done, and like the way you impact, the way you approach different things is very different.
That's
Um,
good.
and I think it's also puberty at the same time. But
Yeah, that's good because like I don't like I think it's always good to stay true to like your roots and always like have a good ethics and moral system, which is why I asked this question because it's like I really just don't want to, or like I think it's always good to have a third eye to see like did my ethics and morals change? Like did I turn into a bad person over time? Like I don't know. Like I can't see what's behind my back, but like the mirror can. So like if I ask the mirror, then the mirror can tell me. But I think it's always like I don't know that I'm just giving you background for why I asked that question because I just wanted to know like I hope I'm still the same nice guy and like we can still talk and everything because like I don't want to change. I think it's like always good. Changing like I like the way you said it, like the Kobe quote, like same beast but different animal.
yeah,
So all that being said, is there anything you would say to like your 8-year-old self?
grade 8.
Grade
Grade
8-year-old
eight,
self. My bad.
grade 8. I think there was a time in my life when I was like in grade 9, grade 8ish, where I got really cocky, and I think it was because like I think I hit like a specific point in my life where it was like I had put in a lot of work, and I thought I deserved a specific result. And when a lot of the projects I worked on obviously didn't succeed, it was like really humbling and really like noticing. And when I would like constantly get feedback from the team, it was really like, oh, like I'm not as smart as I thought I was. I think like the main thing I would tell my 8-year-old self is to have less of an ego and to really just like be in the process to learn and to help people because like at the end of the day that's just what I wanted to do. I've always just wanted to help people, but I want to make sure I don't lose that along the way. So I think the main thing I just tell my grade 8-year-old self is just have less of an ego, like be less arrogant about the things you do, and like you can be arrogant when you've like proven results, but I think and like there's like a limit. There's like a limit to that, and I think just telling myself to really limit how cocky I was and the ego I had is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought.
If anybody wants to reach you now, after this podcast, how could they reach you?
I would say just text me. So do you want me to just give my phone number? Like,
Sure,
it's a
do
lot
it.
easier. I don't reply to emails. 647-677-2046.
Okay, if this
Perfect.
podcast ever goes viral, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're
But
getting
Yeah,
text
it's
messages.
whatever. Like I don't know. I feel like people are so formal on emails or like on LinkedIn. People are so formal, but on places like Slack or like text, you're just yourself. So like if you
yeah,
just message me, it's like a more formal medium. I get to know you better, obviously, and help you in whatever way I can.
yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Ion. It
Yeah,
was great seeing you after so long, and happy Eid. So
Thank you.
see you.
All right.
We'll see you sometime.
Yeah.
It's been a Wavefront podcast. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.